Well, welcome back, everyone. I have a great guest today, someone I've been looking forward to speaking to on this podcast, someone who has made a huge impact in my life, as I mean, numerous ways. Goes back for a number of years. Most recently, I was her executive officer at the Health Services Division at HRC. Colonel Heather Kness recently retired about a year and a half, 2 years ago. She has commanded at all levels, senior service college. She's done it all. An amazing leader who has touched numerous lives. A former career manager like myself, and so she's really touched a lot of individuals and impacted their lives through command, through assignments, and just through her overall mentorship. I know there's a lot of officers out there who will watch this, and you have made such an impact on them. So, ma'am, Colonel Kness, thank you for coming on the show today. And I just want to turn it over to you for any introduction, any opening comments.
Well, thank you, Joe, so much for the invitation. I'm excited for today. So much to share, and I look forward to doing a discussion style with you. I'll introduce myself real quick. So as Joe said, I am Heather Kness. I'm a retired veteran. I served 30 years in the Army. Loved every day of it. If you had asked me 30 years before that, before I retired, I never would have expected or even had predicted or guessed that I would have served 30 years in the Army and loved it as much as I did. I came from a small town in upstate New York, Averill Park, New York. I'm back there now. I'm talking to you from Averill Park. And I am the second oldest in a family of 10. My dad is a veteran of the Navy, served in Vietnam. My brother, younger brother, is a Navy veteran as well. And my youngest brother is a Marine Corps veteran, served in Operation Enduring Freedom in Afghanistan. So I have a service-rich family, and not just in the military, but also in the community. Both my parents have been volunteer firefighters, EMS, ambulance drivers. A younger sister also served and still is serving in the fire department with her husband. And every one of my brothers and sisters is very involved in their community through their volunteer work or through owning businesses. So I would say that maybe it's no surprise that I served in the Army for so long, because I come from a very service sort of oriented family, and serving my nation was the highest honor that I ever could have done. I had a number of jobs, all wonderful. I could say so many good things about each and every job that I had. More importantly, I could say amazing things about the people that I met along the way, all who were part of my story and are still part of the story that I'll always share about the Army, from my very first platoon sergeant all the way to the colonels I served with at HRC. So many friends, too many to count. And even after the Army, the one thing that always stays the same is you still have those people in your life, and they continue being part of your narrative. And it's a very rich history that we share. A mom to two 5-year-old girls. The girls were born in 2018. Wasn't sure where my career was going at that point. But once they were born, I knew that I needed to rethink about my purpose and what was my highest calling at that point. I continued serving. I went to the Army Human Resources Command, where I had the best group of folks. We all got through the pandemic together, and they enriched my life, my soul, and are such a part of my happiness. But when it was time to make decisions, I knew that my place was really raising my girls. And as I said, I moved back home to Averill Park, New York, and I drive by my high school almost every day. It's changed a lot. Yeah. And I meet people who have been living in the community. I've gotten active through the American Legion. I've gotten active through the PTA. I'm on a playground committee to raise funds to replace our school playground. So I'm really not doing anything that I did in the Army, but I am serving in different ways. More importantly, I'm sort of fulfilling this this dream of mine to raise my two girls. My husband is a 30-year Army veteran as well. We spend every day together. And I'm not in a hurry to decide what I want to do as a grown-up as we speak. I think I am doing it every day. I will say that sometimes it's hard to retire and all of a sudden you don't have a mission. You don't have folks asking you to do things and accomplish things, and you have this drive every day, have a calendar full of meetings. It's easy to miss all that. I think it's also easy to, at least in my case, to feel very lost without all that. And so this road into retirement, it doesn't happen in a day. It doesn't happen the day you retire and you get your DD 214, that that form that tells us everything we did on the Army on one page. It's a process. It's a journey to discover what it is. A uniform, who I am as part of the community, honestly, who I am as part of my big family, because I wasn't here for 30 years, and to see all those milestones happen. So we're soaking it all up now, and honestly, I'm happier than I ever been, and I will show you my mug. Life is truly good.
That's great. Yes, ma'am. Yeah, no, it's wonderful to see, having gotten to know you over the years. I'm really happy for you. The girls are just so big and amazing, and I know we've shared a number of stories together while we were together on our young ones, and just to see them grow and thrive and do so well. It really is great news, and we love seeing it. And I, you mentioned it that when you took over a health service division, and then we had the pandemic. I think you took over. So you had recently just had your daughters, twins.
Mm-hmm.
You had recently had them. You took over as the health service division chief. And at that point, we had implemented the Army Town Alignment Program. So we implemented a whole new way of doing assignments. We were on the tail end of essentially reworking how we assigned medical providers to operational jobs through the MTO assigned personnel mission. And then, oh, by the way, COVID came and threw another wrench into that whole process.
For sure.
So you took over. You took over an assignments process as the chief of a division that handles all medical officers, active duty medical officers, education, command, strategic positions, promotions, the messaging that comes out for all those. And you did it during probably the most complicated time as we reorganized how we did military assignments, the greatest reorganization probably since like 1940s or something like that, 40 years or 1940s, one of the two. And then you led a group of officers and civilians remotely through the pandemic. So what was that like for you? When it's one thing to take on a big job, but then when you get thrown in two huge, like, life-changing three, when you count your children, three life-changing scenarios all at the same time. How do you manage that as a leader, or how did you approach that?
Yeah, I think that's, as you recap it, Joe, definitely takes me back. There weren't, every day wasn't carefree for sure, but there also weren't a lot of, ultra stressful days. Yes, there were definitely some curveballs. I think I actually, in my job before I came to HRC, I was the, two jobs before, the recruiting brigade commander for the U.S. Army Medical Recruiting Brigade. We recruited all the medical professionals. The Medical Recruiting Brigade commander, and again, we recruited all the medical professionals and chaplains into the reserves and the active Army. You step into a job like that, and you get humbled really quickly. You don't know what you don't know, first of all. You have to completely rely on the experts who work for you. So as a leader, you have to understand that, okay, what is my job here? Because I don't know what they know, and I'm never going to learn what they know. We're talking about NCOs, civilian employees with decades worth of experience, both at my higher headquarters and in my own unit. You have to become very comfortable with being a leader without having all the knowledge. And when you can understand that, Joe, it's a very freeing feeling. And let me also say, in that job, I had an amazing boss, Major General retired Snow, amazing Command Sergeant Major, retired Command Sergeant Major Mike Schwab. Still in touch with both of them. So when you are surrounded with great leaders and you can lose the idea that you need to know everything as a leader, it becomes a very comfortable feeling. Not comfortable in the sense that, you know, you can lay back and let things happen. You still need to lead in the way that you know how to lead, but then it's all about crafting the vision. It's all about articulating the vision, influencing stakeholders who are part of your mission, getting feedback, setting a purpose or goals, and then just assessing it all and assessing it from all kinds of indicators. So when I got to HRC, wow, a couple of curveballs, but again, an amazing boss, all in a row. We had an amazing CG in Major General retired Joe Calloway, who was a CG for most of my time in HRC. I had a fantastic deputy, Miss Eden Beasel. Fantastic officers, fantastic civilian employees, and again, put into a situation where, sure, I was a career manager for a couple of years, but most everything was different. The only thing that was the same is that you're serving people, and you're helping people through their careers and making choices. But when the Army threw a curveball, that's really when it's time to take a step back and go, who are our experts here, and what is my job, and sort of reassessing on a continuing basis, like, what is my role here? I've seen leaders for sure who, when they're the boss, it's their way or the highway, and that can be effective to a degree depending on what circumstances you're in. But I rarely find that that's effective in every situation, and it's not my personal style of leadership. And it would not have worked. It would not have worked in an environment where, because of the curveballs that were happening, it was fairly chaotic. You just had to be confidently stepping into work every day and navigating, you know, through whatever was going to happen that day, whoever was going to call, all the while knowing that you're probably the most important thing that I did every day was taking care of my own people, who were taking care of the Army's people, and getting to know my employees, in many cases on a personal level. And when I think you empower people and give them room to do their own job, I think beautiful things can happen. And I wasn't born with that knowledge, Joe. My bosses, my sergeants majors, my platoon sergeants, I've worked with so many people along the way that created a lot of the leadership characteristics I had. And I think showed me that there are things a leader can do well, and one of those things that you have to do well every day is knowing your people and taking care of your people in a very sincere manner, in the same way that you truly would want to be taken care of, which is, for me, not a superficial thing. So hopefully I did my job.
I'd say so.
There were some tough nights. There were some tough, well into the early morning hours during the beginning of the pandemic, and to be part of the Army's response to the pandemic. Most importantly, be part of Army Medicine's response to the pandemic, which surely changed, positively influenced the course of COVID in the United States, I think, and overseas where we have installations. To be part of that, just one tiny, tiny part of that, is one of the best things I'll ever do, in my life. for sure, career-wise.
Well, you're still talked about at HRC in reverence. We, for those of us who are still there, and especially the civilians who've never left, we're always very appreciative of you and of that time that we had. And I could personally, some of the greatest lessons I've learned from you, whether even before I became your XO and got to really, be a part of your thought process and how you looked at problems and how you communicated, gave clear guidance, clear direction, clear vision, and also the what I loved most, and this is one of the things I use all the time when I talk to the career managers, is think through the logic of your decision that you're making. That I learned from you that first year when I was the career manager. And, we have so many challenges or in variables when it comes to assignments. We don't have, we may not have enough people for a specific job, what we call an AOC. So a 70 hotel might be an medical operations officer. We may not have enough 70 hotels of a rank or skill set and how we fill positions. On top of that, you have assignment considerations like the exceptional family member program, where they can only go to certain bases that support family medical history, married Army couples program. And so when we would go through, and we may have to send someone to maybe a less desirable position than they had hoped to get, it was, well, why is this person the one? Why are we sending this person to another desirable location, or one that they may not have wanted to go to? And it may not be just undesirable. Like for me, like, no offense to Washington, D.C., but Washington, D.C. would be an undesirable location for me. So when I say undesirable location, it could just be anywhere that doesn't necessarily fit where you want to go with your family and your career or personally. But we look to send you to a position that helps you grow your career. It just may not be in the location you want. But thinking through that, why is this person? Sure, we have to send someone to a position in, say, San Antonio to meet married Army couples program requirements. So we don't send another person there who maybe thought they were going to go. Well, why that? Why that person? Think through the logic of that. And so that you kind of do an audit on yourself when you're making a decision. And if nothing we do is ever out of spite. It's nothing like is that we all there. And if you've ever been to HRC, you've ever been a career manager, we generally want you all to be happy, right? Because if the officer's happy, they're happy, their family's happy, and it helps retention. The unit's happy because they're getting a great officer. But sometimes there's hard decisions that need to be made, and to talk through that with you was enlightening in my first year, to really see the thought process that should go into a decision like that. It's not just throw a dart on the wall. Like, you might see memes of how HRC picks assignments. That's not the case. I mean, every decision we make is down to, we go down the list, we get on a rabbit hole on how we do things. And so, learning from you, that thought process was, it was fantastic. And is that something you've learned through command? Because I'm sure you've had a lot of tough decisions while you were a commander or while you were on a staff recommending courses of action to a general officer, or how did you develop that insight?
Yeah, great. I'm so glad that you learned that, Joe. I think my logic really was developed, yes, through many bosses and many years of having to make decisions, but also needing to explain those decisions. So as a leader, you can't say, well, this is what we're going to do. I mean, you can say that, right? Of course, you're the boss. This is what we're going to do. But if you can't yourself explain when asked, and not be afraid to be asked or be challenged on that, maybe it's your command sergeant major that's going to ask you. They may also be challenging your decision. Hopefully they were part of the decision, but you as a leader, I think it's important to be able to explain it and not have an explanation on how you arrived at it. Sometimes the explanation is pretty easy. Sometimes it's very in-depth. Oftentimes it involves a lot of moving parts. It almost always involves having to develop this sense of looking into the future to understand what is going to be the impact of your decisions on people, on families, on the mission. And so I think that logic really grew as a result of my own bosses challenging me, and subordinates as well, on why I was making certain decisions, and just checking my own logic to make sure it was sound, and that the next morning I could wake up feeling okay about it. You know, it might have been a really hard decision. It might have been hard on whoever, you know, was maybe the recipient of, in HRC's case, not an awesome assignment. But I also found that what most people want is not to change your mind. They want to understand how you arrived at a conclusion, and that you considered their perspective. You know, you weighed it properly in making a decision. And when you can communicate that and be authentic about communicating that, be authentic while communicating that, I think that is what we owe people, for sure. That's what we owe our bosses. That's what we owe our subordinates, is that we owe people who we're serving, our customers, in whatever sense that might be. Being a leader, having a certain rank or having a certain title is not a free pass to just do things however you want to. In the end, you're responsible, for sure, for making those decisions, but I think you are also responsible for being able to describe or explain how you arrived at the decision, if necessary. Again, to feel good about yourself, to feel good about the impact that you're making. You're always making an impact.
Oh yeah.
No, how small or big the decision.
Yeah, I mean, there's been nights, especially when we're doing the slating, where I've you know, you lose some sleep. And you know, one of the officers I used to manage, who I work with now, he was in a weird spot in his career and didn't necessarily match to a job, because he was on that position where he's promotable to major, but he hasn't done ILE yet because it's just the timing. And we talked through some jobs, and he went to what would be probably considered a less desirable position to some. But you know, I had talked to him through, let's take a look at these options. Let's look at your career. Let's look at your family. If we do this, this might help you in the future to help develop you. And then, you know, you be on to, you know, your next steps and bigger and better things. And it worked out. After that year as an XO, he got selected for ILE, did some other great things, and now he's here with me. And so we talk about that, and you know, he mentions, you know, he's like, oh, everything you said kind of came true, and we trusted you because you genuinely seemed like you cared and thought through that process. And he's like, so I'll never forget it. And I was like, well, you can thank you know, Colonel Kness. She was the one who made me think through these type of scenarios. And
you get all the credit, Joe. You get all the credit. You had to make those decisions. I'm just glad I could.
But it was,
give you a framework to make that decision.
But it, you know, I say that to highlight, it's one of many lessons learned. Anyone who's watching this, who's worked with you, can probably point to throughout your career, who've worked with you. And you know, one thing I really want to touch on. So you mentioned you were your husband, 30-year colonel as well. So you're a dual military couple. You have twins. So can you talk about how you both pursued and were very extremely successful in your careers, how you supported each other through this, and then also when you had your children, the support of the teamwork? Because what I'm finding is everyone who I've interviewed, the one common thread that I have with everyone is a support of either spouse or close-knit family or peer friend circle. And for as a dual military couple myself, it can be challenging. It can be very challenging. Can you touch on how you and your husband navigated this throughout your career?
If there was a secret sauce I could bottle, Joe, I wish I could. I think for me, the sort of secret sauce was really my husband. I love him, to death. I also have a level of respect for who he is, who he was as an Army leader, who he is as a leader. He is my number one mentor and always was. There often wasn't a difficult decision I had to make that I didn't run it by my husband. And as you were giving me credit, really the credit goes to my husband, Lenny. He would pack my rucksack. He would pack my duffel bag. I never was deployed where I didn't get care packages from him. He came to visit me in Afghanistan when he was stationed. I think Qatar, maybe Kuwait. Kuwait. It's hard to keep track of all the places we've been. Came to visit me. He was on a mission. He didn't just get to come and visit me, right? He was on his own mission in Kabul. I could always count on him. He was always there. Getting off the bus from JRTC, getting on the bus, going to Bosnia. There's not an Army memory that I don't have that isn't tightly woven and includes my husband as almost the first person that always comes to mind. We were lucky. We worked in two branches that he was logistics corps, I was medical service corps. Those two branches are pretty compatible as far as the places that you can go to. We also, because we are 5 years apart in age and therefore in rank, like in Kansas, and I had to stay back home in North Carolina because I had my own job. Or the time we went to DC, my first year actually at HRC, excuse me, when HRC was still in Alexandria, Virginia. We went there. I went for a 2-year assignment, and Lenny went for a 1-year schooling. Then he went back to Fort Bragg for brigade command. Every weekend, almost every weekend of that year that we were separated, the Alexandria time, we would see one another. We'd meet halfway. He would drive up to DC. Lenny, what I admire about him most and what I was not able to master as well as he was is his number one priority was always family. It was always me at the center of everything that he did. He was not afraid to say, sorry, boss, can't do this, got this thing going on with my wife. I have to say, I wish I had achieved that in my own career, because there were times I look back and I did make decisions that were mission first and family second. I'm not ashamed to say that, because I think it's an important lesson, that we all struggle with, that we're all going to face if we are in a dual military family, or if you're not dual military, you're going to have to make decisions about the mission, maybe over your children, over your extended family, whatever it may be, over your friends. We don't get to ride in the Army. Again, I'm going to say free ride. There's no free ride. You've got to often make decisions between your family and or your friends, or both, and the mission. And Lenny was really, really good about figuring out how to put family first every opportunity that he could. I really admire that him. When he retired, he thought he would, he had these dreams for retirement, working on his hobbies. Yeah. And our girls were born a couple months later. He became a full-time dad about 3, maybe 4 months into his own retirement. Then when the pandemic hit, when they were about 1.5 years old, he was a full-time, 24/7 almost dad. I was thinking yesterday that I don't think Lenny's actually spent more than one day apart, and I don't think there are many days. I think there might be one day, never been apart from from the girls. And he would make that same decision today, knowing everything that was in store. He would still make that decision today. That's just how he's wired. I think the Army gave us a lot of opportunities to be together. I think the Army laid out expectations when we weren't going to be together. We just made it work. All Army families just make it work. I think an outsider looking in would really find it both bizarre and amazing at how well Army families balance the moves and the separations and the raising kids and the change in schools and the getting new jobs and leaving all your friends behind and jobs behind to have to go somewhere and find a new job, new family, new friends. There's just no comparison to it. But I think the Army does a pretty good job at setting all of us up for success, whether we take advantage of it or not, through the many Army programs, through opportunities to be assigned together, through opportunities maybe not to get that dream job, you know, that you just talked about, but maybe you're going to get like your second dream job in order to stay with your family. So there's both personal sacrifice, family sacrifice, and sometimes there's career sacrifice. But in the end, we made it work, and I've seen many, Joe, your family included, many families do it so well. I'm lucky. I retired when my girls are 5, but I think every day about Army families who the soldier, maybe it was both the mom and the dad, they spent a career raising kids and being in the Army. I'm amazed by that. I struggle sometimes to wake up to make the school bus.
Yeah.
And to have done a whole career around that, I think is inspiring. It's inspiring. There's no other word I can describe other than, wow, really wanting to thank all those moms and dads I worked with in the Army, and I hope I cut them the same amount of slack that I need cut in my life on a daily basis. And so if I can pivot just for a minute, I did an OPD, as an officer of professional development at Fort Knox. I was asked to come in and talk to a group of junior officers, majors, captains, lieutenants about transitioning the Army, making decisions, making family choices, all the things that we're talking about. And I realized that I really had a framework that I was using consistently with my decisions, even though I hadn't realized that at the time. But I like to call it PHASE, like PHASE. You know, in the Army, we always come up with acronyms for stuff.
Exactly. Yeah.
But that's how I remember things even to this day.
Yeah.
But it was just about making decisions with a consistent framework I can lean back on and feel good about the decisions I was making. In this conversation that we're having about my family and my career, personal decisions. And it's like, what's my purpose? The P is like, what's my purpose right now? Like, I don't know. Sometimes you don't know what your purpose is, and you need to spend an awful lot of time thinking about it. Is my purpose to be the #1 best soldier right now? Is my purpose to be the #1 best dad, #1 best mom, best spouse? What is it? You really need to think through that. I really need to think through that. The H is home. Like, what is, and home is family. And family sometimes is your immediate family. Families can sometimes be your extended family. So home, like, where does my home, where does my family need me right now? Do they need a mom that's going TDY or is deployed, or is otherwise not present for after school activities or picking up on the school bus? I don't know. It's a personal decision for everybody, but I found that I really spent a lot of time thinking about my purpose, followed by where does my family need me? The A used to be Army. Right? It used to be like, where does the Army need me right now? Sometimes the Army needs you in places, you just talked about it. Sometimes the Army needs you in places that you'd rather not go. You have to weigh that out, and you got to figure that out. Now I've changed that to like activity, the PTA, you know, the American Legion. Do I want to get involved in another community activity that maybe is the same night as my daughter's Taekwondo? Maybe is all day Saturday. Is that what I want? What is that activity? What is that new volunteer opportunity or job? You know, S is sacrifice. So what are the sacrifices I'm going to have to make? Am I going to have to sacrifice, the taekwondo or the dance recital or the, the Sunday dinners with my family? What am I going to sacrifice? And the end is just the end state, favorite Army word.
Yeah.
It's like if you make all those decisions in mind and you are aware of the sacrifices and whatever decision you to a year, whatever sort of a near-term end state or a long-term end state is for you, and am I going to be happy with the choices that I made? And if my gut answer is I'm not really sure, then I go right back to the beginning and try to work through it again, because somewhere along the way I maybe wasn't as honest with myself as what the sacrifices were, what my family needs, what's my purpose, what is the Army or my community need from me right now. So I find myself still, the Army's just routinized this in me. I just find myself sort of rolling through that when I have to, I find myself in a position where I'm making a decision. Do I want to get involved in something new, or do I really just want to chill out right now so I can spend time with my family? So I segued a little bit, Joe, but I wanted to share that because there are these crossroads a soldier's going to have, a parent's going to have, so many times in our life, the crossroads, and you're going to have to make a decision, right? And for me, I was like, I guess I just need a framework to make that decision and to feel back to what I said earlier, like I could wake up the next day and feel okay, not always awesome, but I could feel okay about whatever direction I chose to go on. And in that case, whatever direction I chose my family to go on with me, because there's no decision that I'm making that is not impacting my girls and Lenny.
Well, leave it to you to introduce a new topic for me to learn with your phase. I think it's great because going through these transition classes really kind of sparked one of the reasons I wanted to do this, not only to highlight positive people in our community, in the military, out of the military, and kind of break all the negativity that's out there in the world. But also one of the things that sparked my mind in the transition classes was there are a lot of service members who are getting out, who are leaving service. And when I was in the room, I was with, a first year private who was separating, people who were being unexpectedly separated due to med boards, all the way through a 30-year colonel.
Yeah.
And so you had all these people in the room, and a lot of the things that, like you just touched on, like what's your purpose, your home, Army, like everyone in there was kind of struggling with where they are right now. Financially, oh man, I don't get housing allowance anymore. And by the way, that was non-taxable. And then I'm leaving a secure, I won't say secure, but a comfortable military community where we all have the same haircuts, and and we wear the same clothes every day, and we have while we have a diverse culture made of everyone from all over the place, you might be a lieutenant colonel who's going to separate, and then might go to a big city and work in a corporate headquarters that is doing things totally opposite than what you've been used to for your whole career. And so there was a lot of, I would say in their room, there's a lot of doubt and hesitancy and fear, potentially fear, unless you've been preparing yourself and using that framework like you just described. There could be a lot of people who leave and struggle when they separate the service, or even if they're thinking about separating the service, or once they do separate from the service, struggling with that notion of everything that I had done in my career, I am stopping. And if you retire at 20 years, you're either, if you started when you're 18, you're 38 years old and you've retired, and a huge chunk of your adult development has been in one sector, and now you're going to something new. So I love that framework, ma'am. I think that's fantastic, and really helps put in perspective what's important for you, where you are in your career, and kind of how you see yourself and what's your purpose in continuing on. Yeah, I think that's incredible. And well, I'm not surprised that I'm learning something new from you already.
Yeah, and like I said, Joe, the purpose it's tough. I mean, it's tough for me. It's maybe not tough for everyone, but I didn't launch into a job. When I retired, I'm thankful I didn't have to launch into a job when I retired. But that doesn't mean people, even with jobs, struggle with what's my purpose. And now that I've got, time on my hands, I still wonder sometimes, like, what is it here that I'm meant to do? And it's a journey. I mean, it really is. And there was a slide when I transitioned, they probably still show similar slides. And it was about the things that Army retirees, I was in a class of just retirees at that point, deal with. And that was one of the things. It was something like they struggle with a sense of purpose. And I'm sitting there reading it. It was something, I'm paraphrasing, and I'm sitting there thinking, that's not me. I know what my purpose is. I'm getting out. I'm going to be a full-time mom. I'm going back to my community. I'm going to do things. And then you, in my case, get on, get in your car or get on an airplane. I feel like I parachuted back into my hometown. Hadn't been here 30 years. Nobody knows me. I got no credibility in a volunteer organization. Nobody cares that you've been a colonel. I mean, they're thankful for your service for sure. They don't know what you did. I recall being at my, helping at my girls' elementary school last year, and we were moving some pumpkins from the library into the gym. And I was loading the pumpkins. Don't do the pumpkins that way. And I was like, whoa, I've been doing big things in my career.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I can handle a cart of pumpkins. But I haven't been in my community. I haven't been serving the school. I haven't been serving the greater community. Maybe there are things to learn. There are certainly things to learn. And it was just that moment sort of crystallized for me that you're just, now you've served, amazing. Now you're a citizen that needs to find your own way in the world. And I think some people find it very, very quickly. I love that for them. I'm one of the people that it might take me a little bit of time to keep meandering. But in the meantime, I have to struggle against that itch to always be busy, always have a mission. And maybe just let things for once in my adult life, just sort of let them, sort of be okay. Let them be calm. You don't need to be doing something every second to feel a sense of purpose. Maybe your sense of purpose is just be the calm, chill person, that is letting all the chaos happen around them and doing what you can to contribute. And I think the Army is really good about teaching us that, but it doesn't feel obvious ever. But the Army is really good about teaching us to face our fears. So every person that is leaving the Army, whether they have to leave, like in my case, the Army said, you're done, Kness. 30 years, we got plenty of other people to move on. Or they're leaving because that's their life decision. They're choosing to leave. There's a little bit of trepidation there for everybody. I think the Army does a really good job of helping us work through that. It just takes a little bit of time. There's so many skills that come with the Army, and some of them are obvious, and some of them you don't discover that you have until you need them later in life.
Yeah, definitely. No, I hear what you're saying, especially with going to a community, and you've led in combat. You've led an entire nation's recruiting efforts of medical officers, and assignments are all around the world, and so.
But I haven't moved pumpkins in the
I
library.
haven't moved pumpkins in the library.
So,
That's
you know, live and learn,
Yeah.
Don't get your, what do they say? Don't get your nose out of place.
Yeah.
Is that what the phrase is?
I think so. But it makes me, it
Phrase,
really
but
makes me think.
you know what I mean.
But it makes me think, we talk about kind of fitting into the community when we first moved here. Luckily, with our girls are very active in sports, and so we made some friends rather quickly. But I still remember we were at one of the practices, and I asked one of the dads, like, so how long you been here? And he's like, all my life. It's like, yeah, good point. but yeah, it is a little different. So ma'am, we've been talking for 46 minutes. I mean, it went by really fast. So, and I do want to kind of close out. I have three young daughters. Two are high school age. One has shown a desire to pursue United States Military Academy. I would love it if all of them did. But as someone yourself you've had such great success, you've done a lot of hard jobs, and you've done extremely well with them. What advice, and it's not necessarily directed toward women, but just young people in general, because our next generation of leaders is quickly becoming the 18-year-olds who are going to enlist or go to West Point or do ROTC. What would you say to someone who's considering a military career, whether in or out of the Army, Navy, Air Force? What would you say to someone who's considering it as a potential option for them in the future?
Well, first, I would say thank you, for starters, for even considering a career in the military. It's not, it's one of 1,000+ things somebody could do, right, in life. And so it's just one thing. There's so many directions someone can go in, and to even be thinking about going in the direction of serving the military, I would say thank you. I think it is the best decision I ever made. I was afraid, though I didn't know what I was going to face. There wasn't even the internet. I mean, it's, people can do the math. I'm retired, for 2 years after a 30-year career. So when I was in high school, and it was after college. So when I was in high school, there was no internet. I didn't even have internet in college, I think. Internet came around like my first job in the Army. So I couldn't do the research. All I knew was like what's on TV. So I would say, go talk to people, go talk to anybody who has done it. Ask them every single question that you can think of, the good, the bad, the ugly. No question is too hard or easy. And the reason I say that is because, like young ladies might want to be like, well, can I wear fingernail polish? Look, that's an important question. That's about your identity in many cases. And so I just use that as an example. Some young men don't want to cut their hair, and they might want to find out about, or shaving, on the weekends and shaving every day. Those questions are important to 18-year-olds who are joining the Army. So I say go and find experts. And then if it's someone like me and they want to pursue the Navy, I would find a Navy vet of a similar age, or close generation. Let me say that, close in generation, that could help them through it. I'd also say be physically fit. And there's, even if you want to serve in the military, and I'm going to say thank you so much, if you are not physically fit, it's going to be a very difficult endeavor, and your heart might get broken because you can't join or you can't pass basic. And so I'd say, if you're not fit to fight, so to speak, start getting ready real early, because once you can get over that physical fitness hurdle, you can do anything. You can do anything. It's the physical fitness part. While that might seem like not the hardest part, I think it actually is. Just being able to keep up and have the stamina. I love the Army. Again, no regrets about what I did. Did I know what I was doing when I joined? Absolutely not. Did it become something very quickly that I loved? It did. Is that the same for everybody? It's definitely not. You don't have to serve 30 years, to serve your nation. You can serve one, you can serve two, and you're still serving your nation. And then also, maybe getting some benefits out of that so then you can go to college and then you can do something else. It's a great start in life, or it's a great life. Either way, I would say you can't go wrong considering that as a career. It's just one of many things you can do, but I feel like it's one of the most noble things anyone could do.
Well, that's fantastic, ma'am, and I'm definitely gonna make sure my daughters watch this because I don't know if they believe me, but you have a lot more credibility than I do. So
I don't know about that.
So, but that is fantastic, and
anyone
really,
wanted in the military.
Yeah, that's awesome, ma'am. No, thank you so much. That was perfect, and I just want to again thank you. I can't this is actually truly the highlight of my week, other than Mother's Day, celebrating Susan. So happy Mother's Day to you, a day late.
Yeah.
But seeing you again, I think one of the coolest things that for me is when I see people that I've either instructed or when I was at the National Training Center coached, that I've stayed in touch with, and they call me for advice, or they have me as a trusted person. It feels great. And when I see you are that person, not just to me, but to so many others, to include your peers who still speak very highly of you. Every time I talk to them, I just talked to Colonel Aaron Tremaine not too long ago so
that's a flash from the past. Holy cow.
And so he has nothing but great things to say about you and your family. And so I am very appreciative of you making time of your day to come talk to me, ma'am. And we need to talk more often, text back and forth more often. But seeing your family grow on Facebook and Instagram has been beautiful, and I'm so happy for you. And
thanks, Joe. Yeah, I love it, Joe. This has been perfect. Filled a cup I actually didn't realize needed to be filled. So thank you so much. We're all volunteers in the military. No one's getting put into the military. There's no draft anymore. You're not getting put in by a judge. It's a strictly volunteer endeavor. And I would say when people get out, and even while to the degree that they can, while they're still serving, I would encourage people to continue volunteering. Now that I am in a community outside the military, I find that, and I think a lot of people in volunteer organizations will say the same thing, very hard to get people to volunteer. And there are 1,000 really solid reasons why that is, but things like our VFW, our American Legions, any of the veteran service organizations in your area, your school, the sports events, all of that, wherever there's an opportunity, I would encourage people, in the military and of course outside the military, to continue serving in that way to the degree that you can. And again, both while you're in service and outside of service. It's the thing that keeps our community going. It's the thing that keeps our community, state, nation going, volunteerism. And I think it's, many people are less able to do it. So it takes those of us who can do it and have the energy for it. It takes even more from us to do that. Up in that way. But again, Joe, that was my last parting shot. I want to say shout out for volunteerism. Thank you. I love this. I miss everyone. This is really pretty terrific.
Awesome, ma'am. Well, I have one of your someone who looked up to you quite a bit, Rebecca Sinclair. She's coming on here this week as well, and a surprise guest for Friday. So keeping that one quiet, the surprise guest, but I know he's someone that you've looked up to quite a bit.
Oh yeah, it's gonna.
Looking forward to that interview.
Blow away your audience. And Rebecca Sinclair, amazing. So
Awesome.
I need to be on your end, Joe, so I can talk to all these great leaders. I think thank you for doing this. Most importantly, you're right. It needs to be filled, this role of putting positive energy out, into the universe, and also allowing people to share their stories, Joe. It's therapeutic in a way, and I loved it. So thank you.
No problem. Well, thank you so much. And that's all for today.